He sat at the dinner table, nodding along as someone brought up the news. Bodies in the street, banks collapsing, kids working in factories halfway across the world. Someone passed the potatoes. He smiled and said, "That's why I don't watch the news. Too depressing." The table laughed. The subject changed, and just like that, reality disappeared. His phone buzzed with headlines. He didn't click. His feed was full of jokes, pets, and politics he agreed with. Nothing too heavy. Nothing that made him think too hard. He'd learned a trick. If something made him uncomfortable, he'd scroll faster. He called it protecting his peace. It sounded mature, but it wasn't peace he was protecting. It was distance. At work, a memo came through. Budget cuts. The guy next to him said they were restructuring, another word for layoffs. But no one looked deeper. They joked about it instead. "If they fire me, I'll thank them," someone said. More laughs. But no one asked questions. No one wanted answers. And deep down, they knew why. Knowing too much is dangerous. It means you can't pretend anymore. If you learn where your clothes come from, you can't say, "It's just a shirt." If you understand how systems keep people poor, you can't say they just didn't try hard enough. If you know someone's hurting and you do nothing, that's a choice. So people choose not to know. Somewhere along the way, not knowing became a badge. I don't care. I don't follow politics. I'm just here for the vibes. It became cool to be clueless, safer too. The less you know, the fewer decisions you have to make. The fewer things you're responsible for. But here's the question. When you choose not to know, who benefits and who pays the price? We live in a time where knowing is easy. A few taps on your phone and you can learn how the world works. Who's suffering, who's gaining, what's being covered up. But more and more people are turning away. Not because they can't know, but because they don't want to. This isn't laziness, it's something deeper. They hear about corruption and say, "That's just how it is." They hear about war and say, "It's none of my business." They see pain and say, "I'm not getting involved." But behind those words is a quiet move. They're choosing not to know, and they're proud of it. Why? Because knowing means you're on the hook. If you see something wrong and you understand it, you can't ignore it without feeling it. Knowing forces a choice. Act or live with the guilt of doing nothing. That pressure can be heavy, so people dodge it by staying blind. They also fear change. If you admit that the system is broken, that maybe your country, your job, your lifestyle depends on someone else's suffering, that's hard to carry. So people deny it. They build simple stories where everything makes sense, where they're the good ones, where the bad things are far away. That's easier than looking in the mirror, and over time this becomes armor. Not knowing turns into a personality. People start wearing ignorance like a badge. I don't get political. I stay in my lane. I just want to be happy. These aren't just phrases, they're shields. They keep people from facing truths that might hurt or demand more than they're ready to give. So the question isn't, why are people uninformed? The real question is, why are they so comfortable with it? Why does it feel safer to be blind than honest? And what does that comfort cost the rest of us? Let's get clear on a few words. These are simple terms, but they carry weight. Willful ignorance means choosing not to know. It's not about being unaware by accident, it's about turning away on purpose. You see the truth nearby, but you ignore it. You avoid hard questions. You act like you didn't hear. And you keep moving. This is different from denial. Denial is when the mind blocks something out because it's too painful. Willful ignorance is colder, it's a choice. A move made to stay comfortable, even if it means ignoring harm. Then there's stupidity, but not the kind people joke about. This kind of stupidity is active. It's a way of living that avoids thought. It's when a person builds their identity around not knowing, not thinking, not caring. It's used as a wall. I don't know and I don't want to. People often mix up these terms. They think ignorance means not smart. But that's not it. Some of the most educated people use willful ignorance to protect their place in the world. It's not about IQs, it's about safety, control, and comfort. This piece isn't about mistakes, confusion, or not having access to truth. It's about what happens when the truth is right in front of someone, and they walk away. Willful ignorance isn't new. It's been part of human behavior for centuries. The more complex a society becomes, the more tempting it is to look away. In ancient Rome, elites lived in comfort while slaves built their cities. Most citizens knew something was wrong, but they didn't ask questions. Bread and games were enough to keep the masses quiet. As long as life felt stable, they didn't need the truth. During the slave trade, many Europeans and Americans benefited from cheap goods and wealth built on human suffering. Few asked where that wealth came from. The signs were there: ships, plantations, shackles. But most people turned away. They told themselves stories to ease the guilt. It's legal. It's God's plan. It's not my concern. In Nazi Germany, neighbors heard trains at night. They saw people disappear. Many claimed they didn't know, and some truly didn't. But many chose not to ask. Stanley Cohen, a sociologist, called this states of denial. People saw things, heard things, but trained their minds to not let it in. In the US, the willful ignorance has taken many forms. During segregation, white Americans walked past colored-only signs and claimed the system was fair. During Vietnam, many citizens ignored reports of civilian deaths. During Iraq, questions about weapons of mass destruction were drowned out by fear and pride. And now, climate collapse, sweatshops, mass surveillance, political lies, it's all public. It's all documented. But most people still look away. Not because they can't know, but because knowing demands change. Over time, denial became normalized, then rewarded. In schools, hard questions were discouraged. At work, speaking up was seen as troublemaking. In families, the unspoken rule was, don't rock the boat. Willful ignorance isn't about lacking information. It's about building a culture that avoids it on purpose. A culture that punishes awareness and praises silence. At its core, willful ignorance isn't just a mindset. It's a survival move. People need to feel safe. When something threatens that, truth, guilt, conflict, the brain looks for a way out. Ignorance becomes a shield. If you don't look, you don't feel. If you don't feel, you don't have to act. And that keeps life simple. It's also about control. The world is overwhelming. Violence, injustice, suffering, it's too much. So the mind narrows its view. Focus on what you can control, they say. But sometimes that phrase gets twisted. It becomes, don't care about what you can't fix. That's not wisdom. That's fear wearing a calm face. And then there's status. People want to belong. If your group shrugs off truth, you learn to do the same. Ask too many questions and you get labeled. Sensitive, negative, annoying. So silence becomes a way to stay liked. There's also comfort in repetition. If you've lived your whole life believing the system is fair, the police are always right, your country is always good, then any truth that challenges that feels like an attack. So your brain fights it. Not with logic, but with retreat. Pain is another driver. Some truths cut deep. They force you to revisit what you've done, what you've ignored, who you've hurt. That's hard. So the mind builds a buffer. I didn't know. That's not on me. That's just how the world works. These phrases keep the guilt at bay. At a deeper level, people crave meaning, and meaning often comes from identity, how you see yourself. If truth threatens that picture, people turn away, not because they don't care, but because their whole sense of self is tied to the lie. So they choose ignorance, not because it's fun, not because they're foolish, but because it feels like safety. The mind protects itself. That's not always a weakness. But when it comes to willful ignorance, that protection turns into a trap. The brain doesn't like conflict. When a new fact clashes with your beliefs, it creates discomfort. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. You either change your belief or reject the fact. Most people take the second option. It's faster, easier, less painful. Then there's confirmation bias. Once you've made up your mind, your brain filters what comes in. You look for things that agree with you. You ignore or reject things that don't. Over time, your world shrinks. You only see what you already believe. Emotion also plays a role. Fear makes people shut down. Shame makes them defensive. Guilt makes them withdraw. These aren't logic problems, they're feeling problems. And the more you feel, the harder it is to think clearly. Memory also isn't perfect. The brain edits out pain. It rewrites the past to protect the present. You forget what made you uncomfortable, or you remember it in a way that makes you look better. This helps you sleep at night, but it costs you the truth. Another factor is learned helplessness. If someone has tried to speak up or care in the past and nothing changed, they stop trying. The mind learns to give up. It's always been this way. Nothing I do matters. So people go numb. They stop asking questions. Even basic attention is limited. People are bombarded with images, news, and opinions all day. The brain can't process it all. So it picks what feels safe and familiar. That often means turning away from pain and focusing on comfort. Over time, all of this creates a pattern. Not knowing becomes a habit, then a reflex, then a way of life. Culture shapes what people see and what they're allowed to ignore. In many schools, students are taught to memorize, not question. They learn to give the right answer, not ask why the question exists in the first place. This trains people early. Don't look too deep, don't ask too much, and definitely don't challenge the system feeding you. At home, kids are told to be polite, to stay out of grown-up issues, to not bring up uncomfortable topics. Don't talk about politics, don't talk back, mind your business. So they learn early that truth can get you in trouble, and silence keeps the peace. Religions often reinforce this. Not all, but many teach obedience over inquiry. Doubt is punished, certainty is praised. People are told to believe even when something feels wrong. That makes it easier to turn away from injustice, especially when it's happening far away or outside your group. Workplaces reward the same thing. Speak up and you're a risk. Stay quiet and you're a team player. When layoffs happen or ethics get bent, most people just lower their heads. They focus on keeping their job, not asking where the money went. The media doesn't help. It floods people with drama, not depth. Shocking headlines, fast takes, emotional bait, but very little context, very little space to think. And when everything feels urgent, nothing feels real. So people stop trying to understand. They just react or tune out. Online, the problem gets worse. Algorithms push what's popular, not what's true. People end up in bubbles. They see the same ideas over and over. The same jokes, same fears, same enemies. This makes ignorance feel normal, even smart, even cool. In some circles, caring too much is mocked. Asking questions is woke, paranoid, or dramatic. So people stop. Not because they agree, but because they don't want to stand alone. Willful ignorance isn't just personal. It's built into the culture. It's passed down, taught, rewarded. And breaking out of it isn't just about knowledge, it's about breaking silence. People say they want truth, but only if it fits their comfort. They praise honesty but avoid it in practice. That's the quiet contradiction. They believe they're good, moral, aware, but they also laugh off injustice, scroll past pain, and avoid hard questions. These two things don't fit, but they live with both. Another layer, the pride people take in not knowing. I don't watch the news. I don't get political. I just live my life. These sound like boundaries, but sometimes they're walls, not healthy limits, just excuses. Used to avoid action, avoid guilt, avoid change. Then there's the way people weaponize ignorance. A person hears something they don't like and says, "I didn't know." But they did. Or they could have. They just didn't want to deal with the consequences of knowing. And they use that as a defense. No one told me. I didn't realize. It works because we let it. Even language gets twisted. Being neutral often means siding with power. Saying, "I don't take sides," usually protects the stronger one, not the weaker. But people act like it's noble, like staying out of things makes you wise. It doesn't. It just keeps things as they are. And maybe the darkest contradiction. People who avoid truth to stay safe often end up less safe. The system they ignore becomes the one that hurts them. They avoid politics, then lose their rights. They ignore corruption, then get priced out of housing. They tune out war, then get drafted into one. Ignorance doesn't protect you, it just delays the hit. So the trap is this. Ignorance feels safe, clean, light, but it's built on cracks. Cracks that spread, cracks that break. You can see it everywhere now. People vote without reading, share headlines without checking, repeat slogans without thinking. It's not just a lack of information, it's the habit of turning away. That habit shapes everything. When millions ignore climate warnings, the damage spreads. When people scroll past police brutality, the system stays the same. When workers stay silent about abuse, the company keeps winning. Silence protects power. Look at health. Misinformation spreads faster than facts. People choose easy lies over hard truths. And the cost isn't just confusion, it's sickness, it's death. In families, denial causes harm to repeat. A parent ignores a child's pain. A sibling keeps a secret. Generations pass trauma down, not because no one knew, but because no one wanted to know. And socially, it's creating a divide. Those who pay attention carry the weight. Those who don't become harder to reach. It creates frustration, distrust, isolation, like living in two different realities. This isn't abstract. It affects laws, safety, health, relationships, trust. The longer people avoid truth, the more damage grows in the dark. You can't know everything, but you can choose where to stop pretending. Start small. When something makes you uncomfortable, don't look away. Sit with it. Ask why. Most people don't do this, not because they're bad, but because it's hard. Discomfort is the first sign that you're getting close to something real. Second, notice your habits. What do you scroll past? What do you laugh off? What do you call too much? Those are clues. Noticing them doesn't fix the problem, but it makes ignorance harder to hide behind. Third, ask better questions. Don't just repeat what others say. Don't settle for, "that's just how it is." Ask who benefits. Ask who's hurt. Ask what's missing. And then really listen to the answers, even if they shake something loose. You don't need to become an expert. You don't need to solve everything, but you do need to stop playing dumb on purpose. The world is full of people who already know the truth. What it needs more are people willing to face it. Go back to the dinner table, the jokes, the silence, the way truth got pushed aside. That moment didn't feel like a decision, but it was. A small, quiet choice to not care. And those choices add up. Most people don't lie to others, they lie to themselves. They look away, not because they can't handle truth, but because they've trained themselves not to feel it. But deep down, they know. You know. We all do. So here's the real question. If you're not willing to know, then what kind of life are you really living? And who are you letting live it for you?